Every cargo ship needs a terminal to unload. A container port seems like the ultimate cash machine. You buy a strip of deep water coast, and you build a flat concrete dock wall. Every container that passes through pays a tariff. A standard port handles millions of containers a year. At $200 per lift, the revenue looks automatic and infinite. You think you are the gatekeeper of global trade, but owning a port is a brutal capital war. Before you lift a single container, you must win a concession from the government. Concessions are long-term leases of public harbors. They typically last between 30 and 50 years. Global terminal operators compete in aggressive bidding wars. This creates a classic winner's curse scenario. To win, you must make extreme financial promises. You promise the state a large percentage of revenue, and you commit to investing billions in expansions. You finance these commitments using leveraged debt. Investment banks fund 80% of the CAPEX. They expect steady, growing cargo volumes for decades. But global trade is not a straight line. It swings with recessions, trade wars, and pandemics. When trade slows, your debt payments remain fixed. A 10% drop in volume can destroy your margin. You are locked in a high-leverage trap, and the physical infrastructure is just as unforgiving. The sea constantly tries to destroy your assets, and the ground under your cranes is slowly sinking. To survive, you must build for the megaships. Modern cargo vessels carry 24,000 containers. These giants draw over 50 feet of water. If your harbor is too shallow, they bypass you. This forces you into a constant dredging campaign. Dredging is the silent cash incinerator of ports. You pay millions to suck silt off the seabed, only for winter storms to wash it right back. Next, you must buy the cranes to match. Superpost Panamax cranes are engineering monsters. They stand over 140 feet tall. They reach across 24 rows of containers. Each of these cranes costs $15 million, and you need at least 6 of them per berth. These cranes require massive amounts of high voltage power. You must build your own electrical substation on site. Once containers are lifted, they must be moved. You need a fleet of yard machinery to organize them. Rubber-tired gantry cranes straddle the container stacks. Straddle carriers carry boxes at 30 miles an hour. Every single vehicle represents a point of failure. If a straddle carrier breaks, a stack becomes blocked. This creates a bottleneck on the container deck. To orchestrate this dance, you need software. The terminal operating system is the port's brain. It calculates the exact location of every single box. A typical yard holds 40,000 containers at once. If the software glitches, the port freezes completely. Trucks back up for miles outside your gates. Concession agreements fine you for gate congestion, so you pay millions for secondary backup systems. You are running a digital factory in a salt environment. Salt water corrodes sensors, cables, and structural steel. Your maintenance team is a constant, expensive army. They spend all day painting steel and replacing cables. But your biggest operational variable is not machinery. It is the human labor force on the dock. Container ports are governed by incredibly powerful unions. On the East Coast, it is the ILA. On the West Coast, it is the ILW. These unions control the supply of skilled terminal labor. No ship can be loaded without union members. Experienced crane operators are highly specialized elites. They can perform 30 container moves an hour. They must operate in heavy winds and rain. Because of this leverage, they command high wages. Senior operators frequently earn over $200,000, and they have strict rules on shift work. If a ship arrives late, you pay overtime. Overtime rates can double your stevedoring costs instantly. The biggest tension between operators and unions is automation. Global operators want to automate terminal yards. Automated ports can run 24 hours a day. Robots do not take breaks or ask for pensions, but unions fight automation at every contract negotiation. They protect their jobs with the threat of strikes. A coast-wide strike is a national economic crisis. It halts the flow of raw materials and goods. Governments will pressure you to settle at any cost. This usually means agreeing to massive wage increases and capping the use of automated machinery. Even without a strike, labor relations are delicate. A subtle labor slowdown can cripple your efficiency. If moves drop from 30 an hour to 15, your terminal becomes a bottleneck for the shipping lines. And shipping lines have very little patience. They operate on incredibly tight schedule windows. If you delay them, they miss their canal transit. This costs them hundreds of thousands of dollars. They will penalize you by shifting cargo elsewhere. You lose the revenue of their entire fleet. You are caught between powerful carriers and strong unions. And you have no control over global freight rates. You are just the physical toll gate in the middle. If the gate breaks, you pay the price. When the global supply chain bottlenecks, ports suffer. You would think that congestion is good for business. After all, you charge demurrage fees. Demurrage is a fee for containers left too long. If an importer does not pick up their box, they pay you a daily storage rate. During supply chain shocks, these fees skyrocket. Terminals make hundreds of millions of dollars in demurrage, but this is a toxic profit model because the fees are high, because the yard is full. When yard density exceeds 80%, your operational efficiency collapses completely. To get to one container at the bottom, your yard cranes must move 4 containers on top. This is called a double handling penalty. It doubles the time and fuel required for each lift. Your crane moves per hour plummet. Truck drivers face 8-hour wait times at your gate. They refuse to service your terminal because of delays. Containers stack up higher and higher. You run out of physical space to park them. Soon, you cannot unload the incoming ships. The ships must wait in the harbor anchorages. This creates the famous port anchorage queue. Carriers lose millions of dollars every day they wait. They start to bypass your port completely. They unload at smaller, less congested regional ports. Your revenue from terminal handling charges vanishes. You are left with a yard full of dead boxes, and the importers refuse to pay the demurrage bills. They claim the congestion made it impossible to pick them up. You end up in multi-year legal battles with shippers. Your cash flow dries up during the dispute, but your fixed concession lease payments are still due. The Port Authority does not care about supply chain shocks. They want their guaranteed annual lease payment. Most concession agreements have minimum volume guarantees. If your throughput drops below the minimum, you must pay the difference out of pocket. This is the financial executioner of terminal operators. You are carrying massive capital leverage. You borrowed money based on peak volume projections. Now you must service that debt with falling revenue. Terminal concessions are project finance models. They have strict debt service coverage ratios. If your DSCR drops below 1.2, the banks can declare a technical default. They can seize your operating accounts. They can freeze your cash flow instantly. You cannot pay your labor force. You cannot buy fuel for the yard machinery. The port grindingly halts to a complete stop. At this point, the government steps in. If you halt operations, you breach the concession lease. The state gaming or port authority can revoke it. They seize the terminal assets without compensation. They take your quay walls and concrete docks. They take your post-Panamax cranes. They hand the operation to a competitor. Your shareholders are completely wiped out. Your bank debt is restructured at a massive loss. This is not a theoretical scenario. Major ports have defaulted on concessions globally. In developing countries, ports are strategic debt traps. Governments seize them when operators default on debt. And private operators are squeezed from both sides. You carry the operational risk of storms and labor. You carry the market risk of carrier alliances. And you carry the sovereign risk of the state. It is a game of thin operational margins. To survive, you must play the carrier game. You must offer discounts to the major alliances. You lock them into long-term terminal agreements. This guarantees volume, but lowers your margin. You become dependent on their shipping schedules. If they move their route, your port dies. You must constantly invest in green technology. Local authorities demand shore power hookups. Ships plug into the grid instead of burning diesel. This reduces local air pollution in the harbor. But it costs you millions of dollars in infrastructure. You must transition to electric yard cranes. These upgrades eat up your remaining cash flow. And you must manage the delicate security dance. Ports are highly targeted portals for illegal goods. Customs authorities run heavy container scans. If they find contraband, your berth is locked. You face massive fines for security breaches. So you invest in security cameras and fences. You run background checks on all yard workers. This adds another layer of OPEX overhead. It is a constant, 24-hour operation. The cranes never stop turning under the spotlights. The trucks never stop idling at the gates. The shipping lines demand perfect turnaround times. You live and die by your crane productivity. 30 moves per hour is your lifeline. 29 moves per hour means you are losing money. So you push your maintenance team to the limit. You push your software developers to the limit. And you negotiate delicately with the unions. It is a massive, high-stakes operational game. If you manage it perfectly, you keep the cash. If you make one mistake, the port defaults. That is the reality of running a container port.